this is Adrian. He is the Chief Creative Officer over at Techland.
Yeah,
and we're going to talk Dying Light 2. I mean, this was your guys' big game from a few years ago, and you've done nothing but make it better and better as it's gone on. So I'm really looking forward to what you have going on with Dying Light 2. Do you want to kind of just give us an intro as to how you guys are starting off with Dying Light 2 and what you want to do?
Oh yeah, because that's actually a great story to tell. We've been thinking about Dying Light 2 before we finished the work on the first game. We've done a lot of tests with internal guys, with focus tests with people from outside, and then we found out that actually the formula we are shaping might look a bit different at the end. I mean, maybe not in the first Dying Light because it was too late, but in the sequel. So the problem we occurred was like, we're creating an open world that creates a lot of agency for the player to make sure that he will be able to finish the missions differently, fight with infected or with humans using different skills, environmental objects or weapons. The parkour was a kind of big freedom. But if we are talking about the story, the player was forced to get to the train with Kyle Crane's sign and right on, you know, so he had no decision, no agency on this side. So we basically found out that in the sequel, we should improve the level of agency on the gameplay side and think more about the story, how to create a story that will work best and create the ultimate experience of an open world with a sandbox approach. Yeah.
And the decision that the players make that affects what the city looks like.
Yeah, because our vision for choices and consequences is actually a bit different than the other games. We have an action game, and we think that the choices and consequences you see in other games are very much narrative and much more connected with narrative elements, actually only with narrative elements, if you just dive deeply in examples. So we thought that maybe we can do something with action game with choices and consequences to not lose the flow, the dynamic of the action game because of those choices. And we've been working with Chris Avalon for 2 years how to create this design for the choices and consequences that still create the same pace of that we had in Dying Light 1. And we have it, we call it narrative sandbox. That's actually our vision for choices and consequences in the game. And it's a bit different because so much connected with gameplay. So it's not only the narrative choice, you shape the city and the city actually resonate, those consequences resonates in gameplay too. It's not just, you know, story-wise elements. So that's a really great thing, yeah?
I get a sense in watching you all during the presentation, during the briefing, I get a sense that working on a new IP like Dying Light, because it was brand new, original when it came out, you're building everything from nothing, and you have to build everything. But then when you get to Dying Light 2, you've already built some of the core mechanics in. Is it more freeing when you get to make a sequel to a popular game?
It depends, you know. Yeah. Our idea was to lay 14 million players were playing Dying Light 1, so it's like a big amount of players. 14 million, it's wow. 500,000 different players are playing still Dying Light 1 every week.
Wow.
So it's a big amount of players 3 years after the release. Creating the sequel, our idea for creating a sequel was like, it's a great game for all of those folks that play Dying Light 1, but still there are people that didn't try Dying Light 1. So maybe we could kind of change something, add something to the formula that will eventually be something cool for the people who didn't play the first game. So if it's that approach, it's a bit more difficult because if you're adding something, you need to be sure that you are not destroying something that was good before. Yeah. But if you're just doing a perfect sequel, you need to just check the reviews, check the people what they're thinking about the game, and just, you know, create a better version of the things you had before. Our approach was to make it even wider.
So on that subject, one of the things that I felt set Dying Light apart from an open world game was the co-op option. And so with you guys focusing so much on narrative choice, is co-op still going to be an option?
Of course,
okay.
Of course, and it's actually even more interesting because of those choices. Because as in the first Dying Light, you had your own game. Yours kind of, that's where your game. You are a host of your game, and your friends is joining to you, and you're playing together your game. Here in Dying Light 2, you have a different setup of your world, so it's even more interesting if you play with your friends in your game because they can see how your city is looking like. So we can even call our city a character, important character in the game. Yeah, the city is a character somehow. So that's a good thing. Yeah,
I love that. I appreciate the idea that like I can go into my version of the city and have all the choices that I've made,
Yeah.
you know, affect that. But then if my friend has gone on a different path than me, I can go and at least experience that as well
Yeah.
without having to replay it.
Yeah, and it's not just story, as I mentioned, it's also about activities, yeah. For example, in my world, there's a bridge on the river, and there are trucks driving from one part of the city to another part of the city, and there are a lot of activities connected with that. In your city, there's no bridge, so there's nothing like that, for example. So it's not just, you know, gimmick.
Are you guys careful though to not lock anybody out of like a specific type of content or something like that because you have it tied to like the environment and the geometry around it?
Well, it's to really feel the consequence, you need to lose something. That's super obvious. Of course, we need to measure it somehow, you know, to make sure that there is a player who actually didn't see 90% of the game because of choices. So we need to measure it somehow to make sure that the experience will be full, yeah, and bold, yeah.
Awesome.
One of the things, if I may, one of the things I've noticed as a fan of Dying Light, I've noticed that in the cinematic trailer, but then in the gameplay reveal that you did as well, I could hear infected in the gameplay.
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing a lot of infected. Is that intentional that you guys aren't showing them right now? Or?
Well, in a sequel, we focus a lot on human aspect because it's 15 years after the fall, like a trailer starts from this sentence. So basically, humanity learn how to survive in the city. It's not like a fresh thing. We are scared. We need to hide and stuff like that. So even if they are infected, they kinda can clear streets from the zombies, for example. So because it's 15 years after the fall, but still. In our game, there are zombies during the day and there are zombies during the night. It's not like that. But in the trailer, we were showing a human aspect, which is very, very, very important. And that's obvious that in this part of the city, because of humans are living, there are certain faction peacekeepers and the guys that were selling water. So they actually cleared the streets from the zombies in this district. Yeah. So maybe in different districts of the city, there will be no humans at all. So probably there will be more roaming degenerate biters on the street because of that, yeah. And it's of course dynamic because if you just kind of populate this area with peacekeepers, they will clear the zombies from the city, they will destroy dark zones. So because they will destroy dark zones, those infected that will try to hide during the day before the sunrise, they will actually try to find other place. So maybe the connected area will have problems because of your choice. So that's really dynamic.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the things I loved about the first game was how vertical it is, all the different layers, and even your base being in the tower is the sense that once you get to the ground, that's where you have the most danger. And I really got that sense also from Dying Light 2.
Yeah.
And that plays into the parkour mechanic. And I really love the moment in the gameplay trailer where you put your knife in the billboard and slide down the billboard to the street level. It's a lot
there
of
are
fun.
a lot of those mechanics like that. We actually doubled the amount of moves, parkour moves in the sequel, so it's really much more like a real parkour, even above the normal, usual parkour you see in the YouTube.
Are you still going to have the activities like the parkour trials? Are those things making a return?
Well, there'll be much more narrative, connected with narrative parts of the game. So
something that maybe drives the story forward this time, as opposed to just like, here's an activity.
Actually, the entire parkour section is evolved like combat, like day and night cycle. But if you're talking about parkour, there are 3 areas of improvement. One, I mentioned, we have double amount of the animations to make sure that it's like you're not controlling the avatar, you're controlling the human body. So because of that, there is a lot of context situations, context move. It's really, really great. But second, which is connected to your question, we actually focus on level design and mission design, activities design to make sure that you as a hero, as a guy who can do parkour, you are unique for the world. So it's more connected like, okay, I'm the guy who can do parkour, so maybe I'm the reason why people needs me in this world somehow, because it's more like that. There are more activities, more level design, which is like, okay, I can do it, no one can do it. So it's resonates more on that, yeah?
All right.
Being a fan of the first game, I wonder how much of that is going to carry over from like the weapon degradation all the way to like the narrative from the original character. How much should we expect from Dying Light to be in Dying Light 2?
It's still Dying Light. I'm always talking, it's Dying Light. That was a great game, so basically it's still Dying Light. But some of the issues we had with the first game. We have our idea for the game, but still we are listening to our fans. So if there was a problem with weapons that breaks a lot, it's kind of fixed in the sequel. It won't be that problematic like it was in the first game. So because of that, we kind of adjusting things, but still it's Dying Light. We are not stepping back and creating different IP.
So guns are still going to be extremely scarce and hard to kind of come across ammo for.
Yeah, we're still working on that. It hasn't been decided how they really will work in the world. We had a problem with guns in Dying Light 1. They were actually a shortcut in combat situations. You learn a lot with melee, and then you found the gun, and that was it. Yeah, the gun was the answer for every question in the game.
Sure. Yeah.
So basically, we are working on that. It hasn't been decided. We have design for that, but the concept proof is still not yet finished. So the guns will be there for sure, but we still don't have an idea how they will work in game.
Well, it's such a physical game, and the weapons and the melee combat are such a touchstone for it. For me, watching the trailer, I was trying to figure out what game am I seeing because I saw all these cool environments and everything. And then once that hatch came out with the wires bundling together, I was like, I know exactly what this is.
Yeah. That was the idea for the trailer. Like first the UV lights, second something, so those little moments, and then Dying Light 2. Yeah, that's Dying Light. Yeah.
As a big fan of VR, I have to ask, have you guys ever considered trying to integrate that? Because it's such an immersive experience already. I mean, I'd probably throw up with all the poor core elements, but I think I'd still give it a shot if you guys tried it.
Well, we actually tried in the first game. There was a version of Dying Light for VR. We were showing it during E3, during Gamescom for fans. But right now we are focused so much on the main game without the VR aspect. It hasn't been decided that we're really big fans of VR as a platform, as something really different than PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So basically, it hasn't been decided yet. We're still thinking about VR as a something that could be like an additional thing, maybe.
Well, I was very happy to see Dying Light 2 at E3 this year. I was really surprised and happily surprised by it. When are people going to be able to get their hands on it?
The release date is set for 2019.
Okay.
So it's not that far from today.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's all I can say.
Okay.
PC, PS4, Xbox?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Adrian.
Thanks, Adrian.